Welcome to this presentation. We will start by making a small introduction of Adquio as a brand. We are part of the holding company for the technical facilities sector and its associated services. We offer a full range of innovative products and services. Thanks to our international vocation, we operate in 13 countries in Europe and America. This has allowed us to implement and test Adquio in our own projects for more than 5 years, exercising functions as both a programmable controller, a data collector and a BMS platform, in different countries and various sectors such as the hotel sector, pharmaceuticals, shopping centers, office buildings, government buildings, etc. Adquio begins its commercialization to the public in January 2021 and does so through 3 main channels: manufacturers, distributors, and integrators. All this is mainly focused on the 2 sectors with the most weight in an installation, such as air conditioning and lighting, although of course, without neglecting any other aspect of automation and control. To date, Adquio is already marketed in more than 15 countries around the world. We will then begin by looking at the basic concepts of our products and services, to understand the presentation that we will make below their technical data. As we will see, we have 2 main parts. In the first part, we have the devices that are installed in the customer's facility, and that will serve as data collectors and as actuators within their facilities. And on the other hand, we have the cloud platform, which will allow us to exploit the data and get the most out of it. Let's see then, of these devices that are installed in the client's facilities, which are part of the Adquio ecosystem. We have all these devices. In the central column, we have those that are the programmable controllers, which are the Adquio Pro, Adquio Lite and Adquio Mini. On the left side, we have expansion modules that are composed of an Adquio Multi-IOs, which is a device with multiple inputs and outputs, of all kinds, analog and digital, and that, at the same time, can work autonomously, without a programmable controller. We have a module of 18 relays, which are connected via Modbus, to any of the programmable controllers. Ours are those of other brands, and it allows us to save a lot of space in the electric panel and save on digital outputs. On the other hand, we have the Adquio Mini IOs, which is a small device that adds up to 4 digital outputs and 6 digital inputs to any of our controllers via Modbus. And finally in this part we have Adquio 8.1000. It is a PT1000 probe collector that supports up to 8 PT1000 probes. It can also be connected via Modbus to our controllers or controllers from other brands. And finally, we have the expansion modules, which are compatible with Adquio Pro and Adquio Lite, and these modules allow, by connecting laterally, to multiply by 2 the inputs and outputs that an Adquio Pro has. Therefore, we will add 10 digital inputs, 10 digital outputs, 7 analog inputs, 7 analog outputs, 4.1000 and so on. In addition, each Adquio of this type can be connected up to 8 expansion devices, 4 on each side, as we will see later. If we are then going to see the part of Adquio Cloud, which is the part in the cloud, which allows us to exploit the information collected from the facilities, by these devices that we have just seen, we will see what Adquio Cloud is: an application in the cloud, which we will access with a web browser, which allows us to organize information about our facilities. That controls and manages the systems of your installation remotely. That allows you to make secure connections to your facilities. That manages statistics of your quality data. That you can also design it to suit you. And that also all the experience and knowledge of our technical team is free for you to train on our website. Very well. Then we begin with the technical presentation. In this presentation we are going to see 4 very important points. We will first dedicate ourselves to contemplating the characteristics of the Adquio hardware. In the second point, we are going to see the key points that differentiate our devices from the rest of the devices on the market. In the third point we will see the web interface of Adquio. And in the fourth point we will see the Adquio Cloud web interface of this cloud platform. So, we start with the hardware. As we have already seen, our ecosystem consists of 3 programmable controllers and a series of expansion devices for these controllers. In this presentation we are going to see only the 3 controllers. On our website, adquio.com, in the products section, you can find the rest of the devices that are part of this family. We will then start with Adquio Pro. It is the most complete of our devices, because it has integrated inputs and outputs, as well as a screen and a keyboard, to perform basic functions, such as changing the IP address, checking what IP is in the network data, restart the equipment, etc. and additionally when it is idle, it shows the states of the digital inputs and outputs. In addition to this, it has lateral expansion connectors, which allows you to connect up to 4 devices directly on each of its sides, both on the right and on the left. Adquio Lite is designed for installations in which there are already other controllers, and our device connects above them to collect their data, both via Ethernet and via 485 ports, with Modbus or BACnet protocols, and upload them to our cloud or to the BMS that the client needs. That is why we say that it is perfect for integrations with other systems, and like Adquio Pro, it also has lateral expansion connections. Like the previous device, you can also connect 4 devices on the right and 4 devices left on the same DIN rail. And finally, the Adquio Mini is perfect for distributed installations. We will talk about this later. It is perfect as a protocol converter, because it is a small device, and logically as a protocol converter, the smaller the better. And we also say that it is perfect as a data collector, because as we will see later in distributed facilities, it is a very suitable equipment precisely for this, to function as a data collector for an area, a plant, and so on. Let's see then the hardware specifications of Adquio. We will start with Adquio Pro, and we will see them quickly and in detail. First, we are going to go from right to left in the connectors, and then we will see the data of this upper screen, the indicators and LEDs that it has. So we start at the very right. We have 7 analog outputs from 0 to 10 volts. The bottom connector is the 24-volt power connector. Then, in position 3, we have a ground connection. For the connectors that have analog sides, they all need a reference, which they can take from here, by proximity. Then, we have 7 analog inputs, from 0 to 10 volts, or they can also be configured as digital, and logically they are from 0 to 24 volts. In the lower part, we have 4 protected 485 ports against surges and power spikes, and later we will see that they support the BACnet MSTP and Modus RTU protocols. In the upper part of these ports we have connection for up to 4 2-wire PT1000 probes. And then, we have in the part of the LEDs, position 7, we have the error indicator, the network activity indicator, the bus activity indicator for 485 ports, the internet connection indicator, and the power indicator. The OLED screen is 128 by 64 pixels and has 21 characters and 8 lines. And we have a 6-key keyboard, the escape keys, the OK key, to move through the menus, and 4 arrow keys, to go up and down through the menus or to move through editing fields. On the other side of Adquio Pro, we have 10 24-volt digital power outputs, and we say they are power outputs, because they are specifically designed to be able to directly move relays or contactors, directly from here, without an intermediate relay. At the bottom of these, we have a USB 2.0 port, then we will see what we use it for. At point 3, at the bottom, we have a slot for a micro SD card, which supports up to 128 GB, but a 32 GB high-resistance card is inserted from the factory. Next, on your left, we have a 100 megabit network port, which is our WAN to connect to the internet. On top of this, we have 10 protected 24-volt digital inputs. And then below, we have 3 100 megabit Ethernet ports, which we configure as LAN. This LAN is used to connect to other devices in the electrical panel. And then at the top, we have 3 grounds, point 7 that is marked here, we have 3 GND sockets. As we mentioned earlier, this Adquio has, both on the right and on the left, some connectors to connect expansion devices. We then go to the Adquio Lite, and we are going to see what connections it has on this side. It has point 1, the power supply, as in the previous case, at 24 volts of direct current. And then you have the 4 485 ports with Modbus and BACnet support. At the top, we have point 3, the error indicator, the network activity indicator, the indicator of activity of the ports 485, the indicator of internet connection, and the power indicator. If we turn it around, on the other side we have the USB 2.0 port, then we will see what it is used for. The expansion slot, as in the previous case, with support for up to 128 GB in a micro SD card, X-Factory has inserted, as I said, a high-resistance 32 GB micro SD card. Next we have the 100 megabit WAN port. And 3 100 megabit LAN ports too. As in the previous device, we have expansion connection on both sides, and we support up to 4 devices on each side. Okay. So let's start with the key points. Let's see why you like Adquio. Let's talk about its connectivity. Let's talk about your safety. We will also talk about its opening. We will also see what Adquio provides you. And what are the advantages for your developers. So let's start. Why do you like it? First of all our Adquio devices work with a 4-core ARM processor. This provides us with much higher power than practically any other programmable controller on the market. If we compare it with traditional controllers, an ARM processor type is several hundred times higher and it powers the microcontrollers that use these. Next, as we have a very powerful processor, we can run a complete GNU, Linux operating system on each of our devices. This means that we have the power of a desktop computer, but embedded in a programmable controller in the electrical panel. We are going to see below what advantages an operating system of this type provides us. First of all, it is capable of working with a programming language as popular and accessible at the moment as JavaScript. It is an open language, it is a free language, and above all, it is a very easy language to learn. The local storage, I have already mentioned it. All the Adquios have 32 GB on a micro SD high endurance card, as you can see in the image, and it supports, if necessary, up to 128 GB. We say that our devices are very easy for users, because you don't need any external software to use them. The devices have a web interface and you only need to work on that web interface. You can reach that web interface by connecting a laptop or any computer to this Adquio through a cable, or all our devices have an integrated access point. That means that they generate a Wi-Fi, and you, as seen in the image, you can connect with your mobile, with your tablet, or with your computer of any brand, and with any operating system. You simply need a web browser to connect to our devices. To work, in terms of the speed and performance of our devices, we work with a cache memory, and I explain what this is for. Programmable automata sometimes have a handicap, and that is when the program needs the value of a variable. You need to go find it to the device that provides it. Then, if we reach that device through a bus that is not very efficient, such as Modbus at a slow speed of 9600 or 19200 BU, this means that we are going to take a few seconds, or a few microseconds to get this variable from that device. We have to poll it. That query has to reach the correct device. The device has to search for the information and has to send it back to Adquio. Then for the main program that runs in Adquio, do not have to wait for these variables. Adquio works with two independent modules, one for communications on the 485 buses and on the Ethernet ports, and another programming module that is where the scripts run, and among them there is this cache. So, the buses are all the time collecting the data from the devices they have connected, and the last variables that they read are left in this cache. When the main program needs to read a variable, it only has to look for it in this buffer. It never has to wait for the buses. Therefore, the main program can always run at maximum speed, without waiting for the queries on the buses, okay? It is very important. That is why Adquio has such good performance, and it is capable of working with thousands of variables simultaneously. Regarding connectivity, we have already seen that the Adquio Pro and Adquio Lite models are expandable to the sides, to the right and to the left, with up to 8 modules on the same DIN rail, although we have not said yet which to through the USB port, and with an adapter cable, more devices can be connected to other DIN rails. In total we could reach up to 44 devices connected to a single Adquio as expansions. All our controllers in the Adquio range are designed to always work connected. In cases where a wired network cannot be used, which would be ideal, they also work perfectly with 3G and 4G networks. We have a series of homologate modems for work with Adquio, which are connected to its USB port, and obtain the internet connection through this cellular network. This is not a problem, since Adquio is perfectly prepared to withstand internet connection cuts, and store the data in local while you cannot upload them to the cloud, on the micro SD card that we mentioned above. We have already said that all the controllers in the range have an integrated access point that generates a Wi-Fi, and with any device with a browser, we can connect to that Wi-Fi and work on the device. The 485 ports that Adquio has. First of all, it is important to know that other controllers on the market never have so many ports, but are limited to 1 or 2 485 ports. Practically in no case in a device natively without expansion do we have so many ports. This gives us the ability to connect up to 1,000 devices, because each one supports up to 250,000 devices to a single controller, and we can use the Modbus RTU or BACnet MSTP protocols through these ports. We have our own communication protocol. This, contrary to being a problem, is an advantage for our clients, because what it allows is that a series of Adquios in the same installation work together as if they were one. They are connected through Ethernet, through their network ports, and we can work with the variables of all the devices. From a single device, we simply decide which is the master, and that device that we have considered as master will have all the variables of the other controllers, and it will be able to work as if it were a single Adquio. This is perfect for facilities in which there are many points to collect data, such as hotels. It is a very typical example in which an Adquio Mini is installed on each floor, and that Adquio Mini manages all the home automation scenes of all the rooms on that floor, sends to that main Adquio the only data that are relevant to upload them to the cloud, or that are relevant to do the programming in the main device, but it is very feasible to also do individualized programming in each of slave devices. In the case of the hotel example, the home automation scenes of the rooms on each floor are managed by the Adquio on that floor, not the main Adquio. Regarding security, the devices that have more than one Ethernet port, which are the Adquio Pro and the Adquio Lite, have a firewall. This is what prevents any internet attack from entering the internal network. This firewall limits all accesses from the internet to the interior of the devices, and only opens the ports that we request from the web platform, to make tunnels, or for totally essential outward communications, and only tunnels or secure protocols are used. All Adquio devices have overvoltage protection and protection against polarity reversal in the power supply. And this is a very crucial point that other drivers never make, and that is that our devices always remain updated automatically, both in security updates, in system updates, and in new functionalities. Our devices automatically download system updates, and above all, they are always updated with the latest functionalities. When we release new supported protocols, when we release new languages, both for the Beam web interface and for documentation, this is available on any of our devices, simply because they will have been updated automatically. It can work with alarms. Adquio is designed to manage the alarms of the facilities, and transmit them to our cloud platform, so that it sends them via email to the appropriate recipients, as we have configured it, so much so it can manage the alarms that the device itself Adquio generates by programming. When events occur that the client has decided that they should generate an alarm, as it can retransmit alarms from other devices in the facility, to keep those responsible for maintenance informed that something is happening in their facility. All this information is done immediately, and arrives in a matter of seconds by email to the correct recipients. Regarding the opening of our devices, when using a GNU Linux operating system, we can connect to any API, or any SQL server. We only need to be supported under GNU Linux. This means that we can connect to any API. Logically, you need an independent study and development for those APIs, but there is always that possibility. Additionally, we can transfer all the information that Adquio manages, variables, devices, modules, etc. We can assign it through a REST API, and anyone from the outside can consult Adquio through this REST API and interact with it, not only reading variables, but also changing their value from the outside. We have a complete integration with Casambi, and this means that Adquio can be used as a gateway to other protocols, or to other BMS, and from Adquio, we can manage Casambi devices, Casambi scenes, etc. Okay? The training is completely available on our website, free of charge. Anyone who wants to train in Adquio can do it, simply by registering at no cost. At this moment we have the information, both in text, we have a complete Adquio reference manual, as well as in training videos, where both the programming aspects and the web interface aspects of both Adquio and Adquio Cloud are explained. At this moment we are also finishing the English version, both of the written manual and the training videos. We say that it is a complete system, because with Adquio and Adquio Cloud, we have the entire solution. Both we can collect data in the facility, and act on it, as well as upload that data to a web platform, and later exploit the data, in graphics, then it we will see, in SCADAs, in reports, and so on. And let's see what makes it easier for you. Here, on the one hand, remote work facilitates you, as Adquio is always connected to the internet. You do not need to be near the device to program it. You can be anywhere that has an internet connection, and from there, you can do absolutely everything that Adquio can offer you remotely. We have very concrete examples of this. For example, a client in Costa Rica, that his Adquio programmer lives in Venezuela, and all the installations are done with the Adquios in the client's installation and the programmer who is remotely, really anywhere place in the world where you have internet. We can act as a gateway, so that you can connect with your PLCs that did not allow a remote connection. This means that if you have software from a manufacturer, you need to connect by network cable to a controller, to be able to program it, to be able to load new software. Adquio acts as a gateway, so that you can remotely, from your office, load that software to those controllers, which you could not access remotely before. Logically, in Adquio Cloud we have a SCADA that allows you to upload one or many plans of your facilities, and place controls on them, to control lighting, air conditioning, etc. And for your developers, We have something that no other controller has, and that is, that it allows you to work as a team, up to 5 users connected to the same controller simultaneously, working in different areas of client development, okay? How do we work with a web interface? One person can enter, a second person, a third person can enter, and up to 5 people to work. Some may be creating calendars, others may be developing climate control scripts, others may be developing control scripts of enlightenment, etc. And it is also very important to have debugging. In any programming language, although we work with a web interface, we have debugging. We can see the content of the variables at the moment they are being executed, to locate errors quickly. And this is a very important part for programmers, and that is, Adquio works event-oriented, and we have events of different types. We have variable events. We have device events. We have calendar events. And we have regular and scheduled events. We will see this a little more in depth later. When we say that within Adquio it is programmed oriented to events, this means that we connect to events of a variable and we say, when this variable changes, I want you to do this, to execute this piece of code. Okay, so programming in this way is much more natural, more efficient, and above all, if there are no events in the installation, there are no temperature changes, there is nothing to make these events jump, the device is undone. Absolutely nothing. Just waiting. We have calendars, we have mentioned it, because we also have exceptions to those calendars, which allow us to make inclusions and exclusions from the calendar, right? With this we can contemplate vacation days, holidays in which it is not open, or on the contrary, holidays in which it would not be open on a regular basis, but in that case it can, if it opens, because it is a day of Black Friday, or a day before the 3 wise men, etc. Well, now we are going to see the web interface of Adquio. As we have already mentioned, that everything is done through a web interface, we are going to switch to our Adquio. To enter Adquio we must logically identify ourselves. And we are going to see that this device takes a little while to load the list of variables, because it is working with 5,410 variables. Okay, this list is loading absolutely all of them. So, let's review the web interface. At the top, we have the user with whom we have logged in. We can choose the language. Today, Adquio can work in English, Spanish and French. Below we have access to the manual. And then, we have the date and time of that device. This is important, because logically this device will be working in the time zone of the country in which it is installed. So it does not have to be the same as our current time, right? But it will correspond to the country in which it has been installed. Next, we have the Adquio logo, and above all very important, the version in which the software is, 1.10 in this case. Okay, so let's see what the interface is made of very quickly. So, first we can see that we have here a menu that we can display or not. In this case we are going to leave it displayed, so that it is easier to see it. We have already seen then, that when entering any Adquio, the first thing you see in the main window is the list of variables, and you see that some of them are blinking in yellow, because those variables are being changed at this time. Then every time there is a change, to highlight that change, the values that change are marked in yellow. So let's see what options we have in the menu. The first option is the variable option, which is where we are. Next we have the option of devices and modules. We will start with the modules because we are higher in the hierarchy, and these modules are a kind of drivers. These drivers are used to connect with different protocol SAN through different ports of our Adquios. For example, here we can see a BACnet 485 module that will work through Adquio's 485 ports. In this case we have 4 Modbus 485 module SAN, each one working on port only on port 2 and port 3 at port 4. Okay? Each protocol and each port will have an associated module. The devices will belong to this module. Each device must have a module here, its connection driver with the outside. Okay? The devices are going to be all the devices that we have connected to our Adquio. See that in this case it takes a while to load the list because it is loading several thousand devices. It is a hotel in which we have 400 rooms with more than 10 variables each room. As you have seen previously, therefore we have around 4,000 or so variables. We have sensors, we have room thermostats. In this case we have a lot of room thermostats in each of these devices. You can provide us with a series of variables to access your variables. We would do it here. Okay? The variables of that device are already being loaded from among all these. In this case it has 10. Next we have the export option. This option allows us to export through Modbus TC-PAN, allows us to select at the bottom which variables we want to use to export. It would allow us to select from all the variables that Adquio is managing, selecting individually or selecting all of which we want to export. In programming, We have calendars, scheduled events, and periodic events. As we saw when we talked about events, Adquio can manage calendars in a very simple way, and at the same time it can associate scheduled events to these calendars to execute code on those events, and periodic events that can be repeated every so often. EAK time equals 0.1 s, greater than from seconds, up to years, okay? Then, we have the script section, which is the section where we are really going to program, and here we have several examples. We are going to enter any one of JavaScript code, right? We have a code part, and we have a log part, which is where we can put debug messages, where we can see syntax errors, and so on. Next we have the alerts. This is where all the alerts that Adquio generates are collected, and which have obviously also been sent to the cloud platform and which will have reached the recipients by email. Here we can check those that are still active, or the last that have been managed. Data collections. These are the data collections that Adquio has not yet uploaded to the web platform. System. We have general, where we can see generic data of this facility. We have the option of device server, which is the way in which they are connected so that several Adquios work together as if they were just one. We have the network information. In this case there are DHCP or a fixed IP, we have the DNS servers, and so on. We have the configuration of the Wi-Fi access point. We can turn it on and off. We have the MQTT broker. If we are working with this protocol, we must have it activated so that it works as if it were an MQTT broker. We have the configuration of expansions. Adquio can have several expansions connected on the sides. As you already know, in the event that we connect a new one, an expansion will appear here, and a button that allows us to adopt or incorporate that expansion, simply by clicking OK. In storage, we have control of the storage, as we have seen previously. Here you have a microSD card, and from here we could change it, format it, and prepare it to continue working with Adquio. In cloud, we have the information of this device with respect to the cloud, and in this case we have here the identifier, and we have the status if we are connected to the cloud correctly or not. We have backup and restoration. Although Adquio automatically makes backup copies to the cloud, it also allows us to download a backup copy through this option, and if we want to restore it on another device, to make a complete copy of this device on another, or have it of backup in case this device arises some incidents, to be able to restore all its configuration in a new device. And we have the option of logically restarting and shutting down the system. Very good, because with this we have finished seeing Adquio, and then we are going to see the Adquio Cloud web interface. To get to the Adquio Cloud interface, we will go to the page adquio.com and we will go to the Cloud option. We will go to the Customer Access. Here we can see all the characteristics of Adquio Cloud, OK? And we have a button to access the interface of Adquio Cloud, the cloud platform. As I have already mentioned before, it allows to exploit all the information collected by the controllers, through graphics, SCADAs, reports, etc. Very well. Here we can see some of the clients who have allowed us to show their data in presentations, and to do this example, we are going to enter our own facilities. We are going to go to our company, our current premises, and we are going to see the basic things first of the interface. At the top, as before, we have the user who has entered this facility. The date for the system. What language the interface is in. It is also available in Spanish and English. And then we have the alarms, which come from Adquio. The export of reports in PDF. And in what mode we are. In client mode, seeing the options that have been developed for it. Or in configuration mode, where we can generate all kinds of graphics, SCADAs, etc., and place them on pages for the client to see. So, let's see the configuration options. And the first thing we have are devices. We are not going to go into detail about each one, but we are going to mention them, so that you can see what they are. For the devices, are all the devices with which they are working on the web platform, and that are imported directly from the Adquio of the facilities. Virtual variables. They are variables that do not arrive from the devices, but that we have created using the variables that do arrive from the devices, and making calculations on them. Scripts is something quite curious on the cloud platform, because they are scripts that are programmed here, but are executed in the Adquio controllers of the facilities. They are normally used to generate personalized alarms when something happens that the client wants to control. The tunnels. They serve to do what we had previously mentioned, to act as a gateway to other devices that are in the facility. Through these tunnels we can reach those devices, and use them as if we were in our own office. In graphics. We can create any type of graphic, then we will see some examples, because now it would be too long to explain all the possibilities of these graphics. Data tables. In data tables, we will configure interactive data tables, which means that they can show data both in real time, which comes from the facilities, as well as historical data. Okay. It can even be data in real time that allows us to act on them in the report itself, by clicking and changing a set temperature, changing the status of lights, etc. The SCADAs. Well, the SCADAs, as their name suggests, are graphics. Then we will see an example, where we upload a plan, or an image of a building, a machine, etc. And on it, we place controls, such as see content variables of that device, that building, or even put controls that allow us to act, change temperatures, turn lights on and off, etc. The anomaly detector configuration option is part of the artificial intelligence that our full version has, which would not be Adquio Cloud, but would be Ecosystem, and that allows us to automatically recognize anomalies in the data that are arriving. That of the installation, and can even launch automatic alarms when any of these anomalies occur. In the page configuration, it is where the person who is designing the interface for the client creates the pages, and within these pages he places everything that we have just seen before, the graphics, the SCADAs, the reports, etc. And the configuration of reports, it is precisely for these reports that can be generated automatically, configure how and to whom we send them automatically, and with what frequency, right? Let's then see an example of all this that we are talking about, already in a client interface, set up so that he can see information. Then we are going to first see an example of electrical network analyzers, where we have graphics that allow us to see, well, this is a weekend, a day's activity, the night, the day, the night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is where we are today. Right? So, at the bottom, as you can see, you can put many ranges on the same chart, and it allows us to make charts as complete and attractive as this one. In the lower part we have simpler graphs, in this case of consumption in kilowatts in the month, the difference in each day, and so on. Then, we have air conditioning data, and in this case, it is a good example of a data table. We are going to see that it takes a while to load because there is a lot of data, as you can see, and it is bringing it in real time from the device, and we have data that they are read only, and as you can see the ones in blue, they are data that I can modify at this time. Right? At this time the premises of this building are at 23 Celsius degrees, and the entire air conditioning system is in operation. We have in this window then, the data of all the air conditioning machines in the building, and on the other hand, we have here the lighting data. We see that there are areas of this building that are on, and areas that are off, and we have a graph here, which shows us the on and off of each of these lighting lines. And at the bottom, we have control of the stores in this building. This building does not have a blinds, but stores, and they are also controlled from here, simply by putting a 1 here. We could upload this store, okay? And putting 1 here we could lower it. All of them have automatic end of stroke control, etc., so that there is no type of problem. And it tells us the position in percentage of how those sectors are at this time of being raised or lowered. The general visualization, we have an example of a SCADA, in which we can see on the one hand, the electrical consumption of each of the analyzers that we have in this building. In this case there are 5. We can change the lighting states of each of the units on this floor of the building. This is the ground floor, it has more floors, so we have decided that the lighting is divided into 2 states, the main state, which is with all the lighting on for normal work, and the service that turns the lighting to 50%, which is used for cleaning, right? We are not going to change anything at this time, because we will be acting on a real device. Very well. And in addition to the lighting we can manage the temperature. In this case it tells us that this dependency is at 22 degrees. If we click on it, we can see that the set temperature is at 21, and that at this time it is a little above the set temperature. We could set it to 20 if we want to be cooler, or set it to 23 if we are cold. Right? Also, we have some example buttons here, that allow us to jump to other SCADAs, right? Here, they are not very well ordered or placed, but we could put a building here, and put a little button of these on each floor, to jump to the SCADA of each of those floors. So let's get out of here. We have some more examples of thermal comfort, in which we can see graphs of different types, of each of the areas of the company. Right? In the control of efficiency, we have control of energy efficiency, graphics that make us this control. As you can see the graphics never have a lack of data, they are always correctly fed, thanks to this characteristic of Adquio that if the internet connection is lost, they store the data, and when you retrieve it, upload it so that these graphs are always complete. Okay? We can also make pie charts. In this case it is telling us how the company's consumption is distributed. Well, like this, we have made a superficial view of the Adquio cloud platform. As you can see, we can see graphs of any type, of information that comes to us from the facility. Any type of graphs, bars, cakes, filled lines, or not. Like this one, with multiple overlapping ranges. We also have reports and SCADAs, which allow us to observe information about the installation, and interact with it, both from a report and from a SCADAs. Very good. Well, with this we have finished watching this presentation, in which we have seen the basic data of our controllers, and our Adquio cloud platform. We say goodbye. We thank you very much for your attention, and here you have our contact emails, both mine, which is the lower guillermo.cuervo@adquio.com, and that of my colleague Alfonso from the commercial department. In either of the two you can request more information.